Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, July 2nd a.m. Board of Supervisors meeting. Before we call the meeting to order, this morning we welcome Pastor Jason Walker from Stevensburg Baptist Church, who was going to lead us in our invocation. So if you're willing and able, please stand while we have the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, sir. Before I open in a word of prayer, let me just say thank you all for the privilege of having the opportunity to lead that. And I want to say from Stevensburg Baptist Church and our community, we appreciate each and every one of you. We pray for you frequently during our Sunday gathering and just want to express my gratitude to you all. So let me read a little bit from God's word from Psalm 19, and then I'll lead us in prayer. Psalm 19 says this: "The word of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandments of the Lord are pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true. They are righteous altogether. They are more desirable than gold, yes, each much more than fine gold, sweeter than honey, even the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is warned, and in keeping them there is great reward. Therefore let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer." This is the word of the Lord. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for your goodness and your kindness to us and sustaining us through the night and in bringing us here together to gather and to lead and to make decisions we ask that would be profitable and would be right in your eyes. I ask, Lord, now that you would bless this time, bless those who are here in positions of leadership that you have appointed. May your favor rest upon them. May they lead in ways that are equitable, that are fair and just in your sight, and with humility and in representing the people well. Lord, again, we thank you for them and for their service to the community, and we ask again your blessing on this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Walker. At this time, I'd like to call to order the July 2nd, 2024 a.m. Board of Supervisors meeting and ask Supervisor Rosenberger if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First order of business is we have an agenda before us. Are there any additions, changes, deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll proceed on as presented. The next item, 2.02, is our consent agenda, and I'll ask our County Administrator, John Eggerson, to read these items for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. We have 6 items on consent this morning. Under item A, the board will consider approval of the minutes from the June 4th, 2024 a.m. and p.m. meetings. Under item B, the board will consider adoption of a resolution honoring Judge Frank Somerville on the occasion of his retirement. The resolution will be presented at the 7 p.m. meeting of the board. Under item C, the board will consider acceptance of a grant in the amount of $230,953 for the Culpeper County Sheriff's Office from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. Under item D, the board will consider acceptance and appropriation of a Path Foundation Make It Happen grant in the amount of $24,520 for the lumber needed to construct the pergola over the outdoor classroom at the Carver Center. Under item E, the board will consider approval of a resolution to honor Dolly Booton Berry. The resolution will be presented at the evening meeting of the board. And under item F, the board will consider appropriation of grant funds from the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. The funds to be appropriated are in the amount of $17,500 for the second year of a 3-year award totaling $93,000. No local match is required.
Thank you, John. Any comments or motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Moving on to item 3.0, general county business. The board will discuss and consider a request from Nakia Powell for a waiver to section 613.3 of the subdivision ordinance. The waiver would allow transfer of a family division lot prior to the expiration of the 5-year continuous ownership provision. And with this, I'll ask our planning director, Sam McLaren, to elaborate on this item.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We did get a subdivision waiver application from Nakia Logan Powell for a particular property that they co-own, it's co-ownership with her brother, and they have owned it for some time, is my understanding. Our subdivision ordinance for family division purposes, it's identified with tax map 3921B2A. It's 5.74 acres. It is zoned R1, does lack road frontage to do a typical R1 subdivision. R1 does allow for family divisions. Can't give a family division to yourself. That's one provision at 613. So I believe Nakia does plan to build on the property at this time. They do need to subdivide their interests. And to do that, one way to do that is through the family division process. However, they co-own it. They can't give to them one to herself. She can't give one to herself being on the title, so or vice versa. So they do need to separate the ownership. There's another provision in the family division code that you have to own it for 5 years before you can do a family division. So they're running into that one as well. The board's subdivision ordinance, the county subdivision ordinance does allow under 960 for the board to waive in certain unusual situations if the board deems that exists. The applicant did file the proper paperwork. Staff supports the application in this case and supports the, basically it'd be an early family division under the code. So.
Thank you, Sam.
Mr.
Questions?
Chairman, I've looked into this a little bit. I believe that they have owned the property that they got as part of a partition process more than a decade ago. There are other methods that perhaps could have been available through the court system, et cetera. They've chosen this path, I guess upon recommendation that it's most efficient, so I'll make a motion that we approve it.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Moving on, there is no old business. Item 5.0, new business under 5.01. The board will consider awarding a contract to One Digital for insurance and benefits consulting. And with this, I'll ask our county attorney to introduce this item. Or was that, let me, hold on, I'm sorry, I think I messed up on that. County administrator, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, I can kick this one off.
No, I'm sorry.
The county has an insurance and benefits consulting firm on board, has for many, many years, and previously that firm has been Mark III. We did decide to go out to bid for those services this year, and incidentally, I should mention that these services are provided jointly for both the schools and the county. So the schools were collaborative on this process. Ultimately, we received 6 proposals. It was determined by the team that One Digital was the best and most effective option for us, and we are recommending that a contract with One Digital be awarded today. Mr. Culpeper was called out of town on an emergency, so between Amny and Sheila and myself, we'll try to answer any questions, but we are hopeful that this can be awarded today, as our open enrollment process would be handled by the new company, and that starts fairly soon. So.
Thank you, John. Questions or comments? John? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve awarding the contract to One Digital for insurance and benefits counseling. consulting.
Second, sorry, second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now, 5.02, the board will consider passing a resolution related to the opioid litigation, and this one I'll turn over to our county attorney, Ms. Sheila Weimer.
Thank you, sir. Basically, we received word that there has been some movement with regard to Kroger with the opioid settlement. And as a result of that, we have to ask the board to pass a resolution approving the settlement with Kroger. And it needs to be done before August the 12th, which is when the court has given a deadline for this to be done. This is in conjunction with all the other opioid settlements that are going on. Just one other little tidbit that you may have seen in the news, the bankruptcy court has been rejected as far as the bankruptcy of Purdue Pharmaceuticals, so that may impact some of the settlement things going forward with regard to the Sackler family and Purdue, but this is not impacted by this. This is for Kroger's pharmacy services that, provided these type of medications to people. That's part of this settlement.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments from Ms. Weimer?
Move for approval of the resolution as in our packet as prepared by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Or entertain a motion? I'm sorry, I do. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 5.03. The board will consider awarding a contract to Mallory Safety and Supply LLC related to the purchase of a Lenco Bearcat tactical armored security vehicle for use by the Culpeper County Sheriff's Office. And with this, I'll turn it over to our county administrator to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll kick this off, and then I'll call upon Sheriff Chilton probably to come forward for any questions. But the Sheriff's Office has long had a very large and somewhat impractical tactical vehicle that they have recently turned back in, and they are seeking to buy a vehicle that is useful for the office. It is available apparently, and the sheriff has been thrifty since his election and has funds in the FY24 budget that he's asking to carry over to cover the cost of the new vehicle. And with that, again, Tim, you may wish to elaborate.
I like thrifty. Thrifty sounds good for the beginning. Good morning, everybody. Any questions for that? It's so the one that we had, obviously everybody knew as the tank was what it was dubbed for all these years. It was an MRAP military vehicle. It was about the size of a dump truck, and it was impractical because it was about 7 or 8 bridges in the county that you couldn't even go across because of the weight. So we'd have to map out different ways to get that vehicle to an emergency. We started using, most recently in the last 2 or 3 years, from even when I was at the town, we used the Bearcats from the state police. They have 7. There's one in each district in the state, and the one that's here is kept in Harrisonburg. So it's about an hour response for that. So when you put together the numbers for how many times we've used a piece of armor, it's 89 times within the last 5 years. So it's quite a bit if you think about it. And a lot of them were the MRAP, but again, it was staged and it wasn't able to go there unless last resort. This is a way to insert people and have it on scene. It's about the size of a Suburban, if you will. I sent some of you guys some of the pictures to show the different sizes for that. So as far as the funds, we were able to save about $300,000 on our outsources for jail already within the first 6 months of the year, and we ended up having some money at the end of the year to use. We hadn't spent anything. We had a lot of stuff that was broken, a lot of stuff that we knew we had to spend on at some point, but we ended up having some money left over. And it was basically because of the jail outsourced services money that was left. So that's what we're asking to use.
Thank you, Tim. Is the price that's quoted, is that with all the options that you
That's
wanted?
everything, yeah.
That's everything.
That's done. It takes about 14 months to build this thing, though. It's per agency. So it'd be an encumbered money for that term.
And that's paid for once it's completed, once
Yeah,
it's delivered?
Once it's completed.
Further questions, Sheriff? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? We entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the awarding of the contract to Mallory Safety and Supply for the purchase of a Lenco Bearcat tactical armored security vehicle for use of our sheriff's department.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our committee reports. First up is our Public Works Committee, Supervisor Underwood.
Yes, sir, we were busy. The committee brings forward a motion that the board authorize a public hearing to consider an official, quote, "through truck restricted," end quote, designation on Route 652 Mitchell Road between routes 522 and 615. Second.
Second.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this road is in Cedar Mountain District, and I was contacted by several constituents letting me know that there was truck traffic on this road from two sources, one probably going to the quarries and two going to Coffeewood. It's a narrow road. It's kind of a shortcut to get there, but the proper route would be to continue down 522 and up Rapidan Road, probably another 1.5 miles in distance. This checks all the boxes with VDOT for why you would restrict the traffic on this road. The residents are in favor of it. I've talked with Ed Dalrymple at Cedar Mountain Quarry. He is in favor of it. It seems to make a lot of sense.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think the problem with it is going to be enforcement. I know the sheriff's busy and with everything he's got to do, and the state police don't have enough people to enforce it. But I think you need to realize if you do this, you're not going to affect local trucks. This is through trucks, which means freight carriers, the local trucks can still use it, and anybody can use it that's within 25 miles of their pickup or drop-off destination. So you can put the thing in place, put the sign up, and it may do something, but it may not affect a lot.
Thank you.
I'd say at the committee report, we heard that Mr. Dalrymple was in favor of this and thought that it maybe would help a little, at least there'd be a sign there, so.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, Ms. Ellis.
Next, the committee brings forward to the board with no recommendation the consideration of a request by the Warrenton Training Center for extension of public sanitary sewer service to the property located at 22129 Gateway Road, Elkwood, Virginia. And for that, I guess it's no recommendation, so would we want staff to elaborate? Yeah.
Mr. Howard?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The county's had discussions with the Warrenton Training Center on water and sewer extensions to their property for many years. They currently are served by a well and septic at their facility there on Gateway Road, and it's limiting their expansion opportunities. So we've talked to them on several occasions, or they've talked to us on several occasions with various routes between their facility and the facility down at the air park on how to provide water and sewer to their property. In the past, all the discussions revolved around what would the total capital cost be. We would give them an estimate, they would go back and talk to their funding agencies, and they weren't able to come up with a total price during some of their projects. So they've asked now if the county would entertain doing the design and acquire the necessary easements on a route of the board's choosing to connect their facility to either the air park or actually back to the town. And once that was complete, then they could pursue construction money. They would fund the entire design and acquisition of easements and/or construction, but it would be administered by the county, and the county would be responsible for acquiring any easements. The route that was shown in the package does go through Brandy Station, which was the initial intent, to try to pick up failing septics in the Brandy Station area. And that route would cross approximately 35 parcels to go into the air park. They've asked us to consider that option, so that's what we're here for today. See if you'd like to pursue this at all or not.
Thank you, Paul. Questions for Paul? Thank you.
I have a question, Paul. Any idea what the capital investment is? Range as far as the engineering, the acquisition costs, the construction costs totally that the county would gain out of this if it was implemented?
The 22 estimate was about 13 million. I did some back of the envelope calculations with our engineers the other day. If we stick with the route that's in there, it's about 16 or 17 million right now. That's in today's dollars, of course, but it's roughly that order of magnitude.
Mr. Chairman, I just want Paul to clarify, we are talking here not about water, but about sanitary sewer service only, correct?
They've discussed both. They need sewer. They would entertain water as well, but they do need sewer. That's their primary focus, is sewer, for sure.
So if they agree to do the water too, what's the additional capital investment if they did the water along with the sewer?
That was in the $13 million in 2022, so we're looking at about 20 million. It would be less than that if it's just sewer.
Paul, we have an arrangement at Coffeewood where a sewer was put in place and offered to the public in that area, and it's restricted for future growth. Could something like that work in this situation?
I hadn't considered that. The Mitchell's situation was the prison provides the sewage treatment at no cost to the county and gave the county 50,000 gallons a day of capacity. I believe it was 50,000 when the prison was built, to support homes around the prison and that had failing septics, failing drain fields, outhouses, that type of stuff. And the county was responsible for building the distribution, but they provide free treatment to those residents near the prison. I'd have to talk with the county attorney about what we could restrict on this kind of a scenario if it's public infrastructure going that way. I'm not sure. The county does control, or the board does control, the service areas for water and sewer, so that just because there's a line there doesn't mean you have to have it in the service area, but there would be a line there. But that service area is established by the board.
But this could definitely be beneficial to those down in Brandy area that have the failing drain fields, is that right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of houses through that area that the drain fields are failing.
Correct.
So if they go through, instead of coming through us to go through the air park, what would it look like and how would it be? Would it be able to be restricted if they came straight from town?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So if they, instead of coming through the air park and they went straight from town, how does that change what we can and can't do, or?
I don't think that would, I think your options, whether you went to the air park or the town, would be the same.
Okay.
As far as restricting access, how you want to manage it.
Because I definitely would be for looking into seeing if we could do what we did with Coffeewood in this similar stance, because if not, you will see Carrico Mill become all road frontage of houses, if they can connect to sewage.
I believe we can control the service areas, but if there is public infrastructure and capacity, our control is through the service area definition, I believe. And is that correct?
So we would be able to not increase the service area to particular areas within, so that you're gonna see it become very choppy if we just cover the houses that are currently there, plus the Warrenton Training Center. Inevitably, you'll see in the future it just keep expanding.
Yeah.
One other factor that I'll just, to add to what Mr. Howard said, there would be, no matter which route you go, there certainly would be a lot of legal work that would have to be done too, as far as acquiring the easements to build this. So, 30-some parcels, that's, potentially, I'm sure some people would be more than happy to sign easements with us, and we can get just a compensation idea and do that. But there will be those that don't want it, and for that reason, this could result in condemnation discussions and/or litigations that might potentially come from all this. So just a factor to
For me, if
think
I
about.
were a landowner, all I'd want is to be in the service area.
Well, to me, the legal work would not be part of your responsibility other than oversight, because you would have third-party consultants doing all the acquisition.
Possibly, yes, sir.
Paul, at this point, are we looking to approve the study and the cost of doing this, or are we saying we're going to move forward? This is moving forward with a study, correct?
This is, in my opinion, this is stage one to see if the board would like to do this, would be to approach the Warrenton Training Center and then draft an agreement, and the board would have to finalize a route, and that would come back to you for final approval, is my intention, if you want to proceed with it at all. But it would have to have a contract between the county and the Warrenton Training Center for reimbursement of all the expenses. We'd have to identify a route. We'd have to come up with some preliminary cost estimates and put that into a contract that you all would have to consider.
And again, there would be no real burden on staff, because everything would be feed out to a third party.
My discussions with Warrenton Training Center is that it would be paid for by the Warrenton Training Center. There would be some staff requirements from Sheila and myself for oversight or management of a contract, but the construction and all the legal easement, surveying, acquisition services, our intent is to contract all that, because we don't have the staff to do this project.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
As much as I would love to help the Brandy Station houses, and I understand the whole failing septics, I drive through there all the time, it very much scares me to start adding in this area, because I fear the amount of growth and the amount of time that will happen there.
Mr. Chairman, inevitably, if you move in this direction, there are going to be a lot of people that aren't going to want to come across them, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to want to have taps in order to get across them. So, you could move forward and then make a decision as to whether or not you wanted to progress further, depending on the feedback that came in. But 30-some landowners is a lot of people to impact.
And see what the feedback is. So rather than say no before you begin, see what happens, and then if you run into problems, okay, there are many, many steps in this process, but there are those that would very much be benefited by the infrastructure, And this is probably $20+ million of infrastructure that would be from federal tax dollars, not local. All tax dollars, of course, but at a different level. So I don't know. It's maybe worth looking at, in my opinion. That said, well, I don't know.
And what kind of
I
capacity?
agree with Supervisor Underwood on that. I mean, a $20 million investment plus serving people that, as Chairman Bates said, that are in need in the Brandon Station area, to me outweighs fear going forward, if that's the justification we're going to use.
So is that a motion? We have
So are we, I'm going to move, but somebody help me here so we get this correct. I'm going to move that we direct staff to put together a proposal to go back to the Warrenton Training Center on how to move forward with this project at this time, which I'm assuming will end up in the next step where we start to work on a route and all of that. But at this point, just going back to Warrenton Training Center saying, yes, we'd like to begin this process and move forward from there? Or should we have something else along there to start?
I think the idea was that we would pursue an MOU with Warrenton Training Center to study it and, you know, take the steps necessary if the
Then
decision's made to.
My motion will be to pursue an MOU with Warrenton Training Center to move this project forward.
Second.
I'm a little concerned about moving this project forward. There may come a time, once you get into this, that you don't want to move that project forward. So I don't think I wouldn't phrase it so that there would be an expectation that once we start this, it's going to happen, from my perspective.
I did not mean to create an expectation that we're moving forward without further due diligence.
I understand that, but it may be an assumption on the other end of this that that's what it is. I mean, verbiage would have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, how about if we clarified it, that we do an MOU to study the potential of this? Rather than saying to move forward, we say to study the potential. Would that be more clarification?
That's acceptable to me. So the motion, the motion is an MOU to move forward to study the, Tom, why don't you make this motion?
To study the potential.
Yeah, just to study the potential.
Ms. Ellis, are you clear on the motion? All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous, Ms. Ellis. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Now, C, the committee brings forward a motion that the board make a formal request to VDOT for the preparation of an arterial management plan for the non-limited access portion of Route 29 in Culpeper County. So essentially beginning at 299 to James City Road in Madison County.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Maybe, John, do you want to brief?
Just the Public Works Committee has had some numerous discussions about the whole corridor there, especially the intersections of 29 and Riva Road and 29 and White Shop Road. And VDOT does have funding that they will spend on certain arterial planning. And the Public Works Committee would propose that we formally request VDOT to do such a study, again, as Mr. Underwood said, from 299 all the way into Madison County, and that has been vetted with the Madison County administrator, who was very happy to have it go that far.
Even offered a potential letter in support. So.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our building and grounds. With this, we'll turn it over to Supervisor Durr.
Mr. Chairman, the committee brings forward a motion that the board approve the award of a professional services contract to Mosley Architects for the architectural services to prepare a space plan to address the courthouse area and the courthouse expansion needs.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion?
Paul, would you like to come up and talk a little bit about where we are with that?
Yes, sir. We've completed the RFP process and recommended Mosley. Once if we get Mosley Architects under contract, the next step would be to do some data gathering and assessment of the existing spaces, interview tenants in the existing buildings, determine, eventually bring back to you options, determine the space need first, what we would need to address the needs over the next 20 years. And then they'll come back through the committees and explore various options for how to do that. Ultimately culminating in a plan that says we need X square feet and this is the best option on how we want to do that. At that point, we would do another RFP for architectural service to actually build that courthouse. But this gets us up to determining the actual need, vetting various options on how to address that need, where to put it, and then it can also include phasing plans on how you want to implement such a project like that. So that's where we are right now. It would take about 9 months or so. There are a lot of stakeholders involved, so we would coordinate schedules on how to get the base needs assessment complete, but that's the initial estimate is about 9 months. We have $90,000 remaining in the budget for courthouse space needs, and we would ask for a budget amendment of $110,000 from the general fund to cover this cost. And I'm not sure if that needs to be 2 motions or can be in the same motion, but we do have to have a budget amendment.
And that's going to include the area around the courthouse as well, the courtyard, the jail, the parking lot across the street, the fire and rescue station beside the courthouse, the whole little area there, right?
Yes, all that is under consideration. All the property around the courthouse will be considered on all 4 sides, and the associated parking needs that come with that too.
Paul, does that have any, will the town have any input on that when you bring up parking? Because I know the master plan that was brought up was a great idea on an overview of the entire area, because it's gotten to the point, it's a lot of government services in a small area, and when we look at the parking issue, I know the town has had issues with the parking before this even came about. So is that something that the town is going to be able to help with, or is that?
They're part of the group that will be working on this study for that various reason. We've had discussions with the town planning director, so he's aware of our intentions and things we're going to look at. So they would be definitely a stakeholder and a partner in whatever the solutions are. Because there are a lot of the options would impact the town, whether we close streets, where we put parking, zoning, historic district. We're going to need their help on a lot of issues as we go forward.
So with that, when you brought up about the amendment, the budget amendment, is that something, is that 2 separate motions? Would that,
Probably should be 2.
2 separate motions, okay. So, any other questions for staff? Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
So the motion to approve Mosley would stand, and then we would need a second motion for the budget amendment.
All right, so we'll go ahead and ask for a motion on the first question. Do we got a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. And we'll look for a motion for the budget amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the funding, the balance of the funding for the Mosley contract, $110,000, come from the general fund.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion?
In the form of a budget amendment for clarification.
In the form of a budget amendment.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to Rules Committee, Supervisor Gugino.
The committee brings forward a motion that the board approve the pursuit by staff of enrollment in the Soul Smart program to be initiated by letter of support.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? And would anybody like to have Sam elaborate? Or you
To
pretty
me, it's a
clear on
great
this?
program. It makes it easier for residential solar, and that's great.
It also provides resources for us to improve any processes and funding for grants.
All right, motion and a second. No further discussion. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Ellis. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And carries. Moving on to item 7.0, our Economic Development Report, and with this, we'll turn it over to Mr. Rothmel.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last meeting I gave you a really long report. This time I made up for it with a little bit shorter. Wanted to give you a public transportation update. Maybe. If we can just move forward. So this is the map just to give you some, yeah, I'm not getting anything. This is the map of the transportation that we have currently. As you can see, the green is the south route, the red is the north route, and the light blue is the express. Because of the county participating with the fixed route system that started in December, this has allowed us to expand the route, including to the field house, to Bennett Road, to the Northridge area, as well as the southern portion where we have DMV and Culpeper Wellness. This is what you can see the ridership compared 2023 to 2024. If we go one more slide, we'll see the raw numbers. We've seen tremendous growth, and this is kind of what we're looking for in the transportation system, the better ways to move people around and quickly. The express route, adding that, there was question or concern that would that take from the other routes? And what actually has happened is we're seeing more people ride the express and more people ride the system, which is exciting. And as we move forward, this allows us better access to expand the route further out, because the express will get people across both routes quickly. You can get 30 minutes from one side of town to the other. And then that allows the local routes to continue to expand out into the areas that are close but not necessarily near, which is one issue that we have with our development area around town. If we go one more slide, we're not planning any updates for the service till at least June 2026. The reason why is the way the calendar works. Remember, most of this funding comes from the state through their program, so we have to apply in December. So every December, we have to send in the application for service to start in June, July, the earliest we could start it. So we have not done any planning to expand the route this year, which means we won't have an application for December 2024. The first opportunity we could have would be December 2025 to even bring in an application. So I won't be coming back to you with a transportation change for at least another year. We continue to look at the growth of the fixed route. We do want to see this settle. Just people are still getting used to it, which is great. We've only had about 6 months of service. The Virginia Regional Transit and the Public Transportation Board are reviewing policies that will specifically affect the on-demand service that the county offers. We do have 2 on-demand buses. 2 policies that are things we need to think about is that the Public Transportation Board is considering is, can someone ride standby? Where they call and say, hey, I would like a ride tomorrow at 2 o'clock. The bus is already taken. Could we put them on standby? So that way, if for some reason someone calls the day of and cancels, adding that person back in, it allows us to expand services. And also standing requests. People that have regular doctor's visits, for example, this is a good example where maybe dialysis, things of that nature that they know happen consistently, they have standing requests. How long is a standing request good for? And if we asked that question to the Public Transportation Board, and everyone had different answers. Standing requests could be forever, they could be for 2 weeks, they could be for 2 months. So understanding what the standing requests are. And then we're also seeing requests for more intra-regional connectivity. We're getting a lot of great connectivity right now, a few days a week, but people are looking to specifically go south every day of the week. So that might be something that comes up next year, but at this time, we are not anticipating any changes. We are waiting for the on-demand service. We have 2 buses. We have about enough service for a bus and a half capacity, so that allows us to take one of those buses offline every now and then and do a semi-fixed route, we call it. Currently, we're only doing that out to Brandy for Virginia Breeze. We're waiting for the for the expanded fixed route to settle down so we can so that everyone understands the process, and then we'll bring in that semi-fixed route again. Public Transportation Board will probably look at that towards the end of this year. There's just been so much change going on with the transportation, but overall, it's been very exciting to see how that's grown.
Thank you, Brian. Questions or comments for Brian?
Yeah, if I may. So the next application time is December of 2025. At what point do we have to start formulating that? Because I would like to see us start looking at possibly different stops along the Battlefield State Park, whether that's like Graffiti House or all the way up to the point at Fleetwood Hills. But at what point do we need to start kind of taking ideas?
To do a full fixed route, we would need to start that probably next spring to be like fully into it by the summer. We can do the semi because we're the semi-fixed route, which is the County 2 bus, which is already funded. We're already going out to Brandy at 12:30, so we could look at bringing that even sooner. I mean, that can start as soon as the Public Transportation Board approves it.
Okay, Brandy Station and also possibly the visitor center at Cedar Mountain.
And for Cedar Mountain, we do have a stop at Carver, but that's the orange Culpeper connector.
Okay.
So that's I think it's going off of memory, I think they go through there twice a day, once early morning and then once in the afternoon.
Okay.
And Brian, currently we operate 2 separate systems, right? It's the county and the town, or are they essentially
The fixed route
combined?
they're combined on the fixed route.
They are, okay.
Yeah. On the on-demand service, there is a town on-demand and there's a county on-demand.
Okay, so as we move forward and continue to grow, along with what Supervisor Gugino was talking about, what are the other steps that we're going to need to take to improve and expand our transportation as we, continue to see growth?
On the fixed route side,
Yes,
probably a 4th bus. It'd be difficult to squeeze any more. We could squeeze a little bit probably out of the fixed routes, but a 4th route would probably be necessary. Something that cuts between the McDevitt Drive area. That's the next connection.
Okay.
Most likely, but that's me just spitballing. I am not a public transportation planner.
But you can take that back to the group and,
Yeah.
and begin discussions about that 4th
Yeah.
bus,
yeah,
correct?
Correct.
Okay, terrific, yep, thank you.
All right. Appreciate seeing the increase in ridership, and I've heard from constituents. If we need to wait till June of 2026 or late 25 for the application, okay. If it's possible to do it earlier, I think the numbers are showing there's clear demand. I understand you want to get the routes to be known and regularly used. That said, even if we're middle of 25, they'll be known by then, and we could make minor tweaks, et cetera. So, and just as Supervisor Gugino would love to see it go a little bit north, I would love to see it go a little bit south and west. So there's plenty of demand, I believe, if you were to look at the beginning of Stonehaven, and if you were to look at the intersection of the 7-Eleven, the auto dealerships, et cetera. There are people who would find it worthwhile if there were a fixed route there.
That's the one you mentioned, going south, we do have the connector that Foothills Express, which goes Culpeper down to Charlottesville. That's the one that goes 3 days a week. Probably will be coming to you next year to bring that 5 days a week. But the Stonehaven, that's the one thing we talk about, the connection Culpeper to Warrenton.
Yeah. And for them, just more frequent for employment, either employment going that direction, such as the auto dealers,
Yeah.
convenience store, et cetera, or from those, there are a lot of houses in there now heading towards town.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Any further comments? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And moving on to item 8.0, there's no administrator's report. With that, we'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into closed meeting as permitted under Virginia Code annotated section 2.2-3711A, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 29. 2, 1, consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters, in particular to a pending lawsuit requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel where, if made public initially, the legal position of the board/county would be adversely affected. 2, the potential purchase of real property located in the West Fairfax district where the discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position, negotiating strategy, and financial interest of the county/board. 3, the potential purchase of real property located in the Stevensburg district, where the discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position, negotiating strategy, and financial interest of the board/county. And 4, the consultation with legal counsel and to discuss and consider the award of a public contract involving the expenditure and/or the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where, if made public initially, the financial interest of the board/county would be adversely affected.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We're in closed session. Thank you all.